everyone, this is Pause or Repeat. Here we figure out whether a game is really worth your time and money. Today's game is Doom: The Dark Ages. The modern Doom series is back, and this time with a prequel to the previous two games with different gameplay to boot. But will the game hold up to the praise of the first two in the trilogy? Let's find out by first going over the gameplay. The gameplay of Doom: The Dark Ages, while different than the previous two, is still going to feel like modern Doom. You'll still be ripping and tearing through demons at a breakneck speed. However, not quite as fast as in Doom Eternal. While Eternal was all about movement and jumping from demon to demon while evading attacks, The Dark Ages is more about standing and fighting. This is mostly due to there being a shield saw and a bigger focus on melee than previous entries, with weapons like a flail or power gauntlets. The shield saw is a defense, weapon, and puzzle mechanic all in one, and is really the standout new feature of the game. You'll even be using the shield to dash across the battlefield and close the distance between enemies. This is your main movement ability. And of course, you can't forget the weapons, with series staples returning such as the shotgun and super shotgun, plasma guns, and more. There are even weapon upgrades and runes, which will also make a return from the previous two games. And alongside this, we've also got mech and dragon gameplay as the cherry on top. Now, since this is a prequel, how does this fit into the story? The story of Doom has never really been a huge focus. Gameplay has been more important. The Dark Ages aims to change that a bit with a lot more cutscenes and characters. You're still the Doomslayer, of course, but this time things are brought back to the war between Hell's forces and the Night Sentinels, backed by the Makers. The Makers have given the Slayer great power, but also put a leash on him. His will is not entirely his own. The story is mostly a setup for you to have an excuse to fight hordes of demons in traditional Doom fashion. But now the question still stands. Pause or repeat? Somehow, power armor always looks better with a cloak. And make a big fur cloak, you got me sold on that look.
Yeah, you know what? I couldn't help but think of Doom as like Sony's Kraven the Hunter.
Yeah, it does look like the same aesthetic. Yeah.
Yeah, I was kind of, I definitely like the different approach because, obviously, Doom went from Space Marine on Mars to a medieval monster slayer, and somehow it still feels like home if your home was on fire and full of screaming demons, Henrik. I mean, Doom: The Dark Ages ditches the spaceships for cathedrals, but make no mistake, this prequel to the Doom 2016 and Doom Eternal is less history lesson and more legend in the making.
Yes, because it is a prequel, and you could maybe say, okay, well, that's why it feels a little bit different, because there's different guns and abilities and all that sort of thing. But does it feel too different is the question, because they've got a little bit of a change in focus for the gameplay for this one. It's not as important to have a really good gun setup. It's actually more important in this one to have melee weapons be your primary damage dealer, because now you got things like a gauntlet, you got a flail, you got a big mace, and they really want you to use them, because not only do you have those, but you also have that shield saw.
Yep.
And all the abilities culminate in the fact that there are some enemy abilities that can be parried with your shield. And when you parry them, they get stunned a little bit, and that's when you're supposed to come in with your melee weapon and, wail on them a little bit. So that's really their flow state for this game is get in there with your shield, melee around a little bit, parry a couple attacks, maybe get out of there if you need to, shoot a little bit from the distance, and then go right back in. It's a little bit different than the past two games, and I don't know how I feel about it. What do you feel about that, Chris?
Well, for over 30 years, this franchise has been loud, a bloody heartbeat of the FPS genre. And now, Doom: The Dark Ages throws that all in a Hellfire blender and catapults us back to a time when swords, castles, and demonic armor were all the rage. You nailed it, Henrik. I feel like the heavier focus is on the melee combat, and the Doomslayer swaps his usual guns blazing approach for a more up-close brutality, all while dual-wielding medieval rage and a shield saw. The best way to describe it, Henrik, is it's like Captain America got possessed by a lawnmower. It is so freaking badass. I love it. I felt like an Avenger in the Doom universe.
It is very fun to just throw your shield out and get a few kills on the fodder enemies, as they call them. But why I feel conflicted about it at the same
Okay.
time is yes, the dopamine hits are there. It feels great. But then I think about what could have been if they continued with the Eternal formula. And I'm like, you know what? I feel like I like the Eternal formula better of, bouncing around from enemy to enemy and even, vertically, not even just horizontally like you are in this game.
Yeah.
And Eternal's just a bit faster in general. Yeah, it's still pretty, fast in this game, but it's not as fast as Eternal was. What do you think about that,
Yeah,
Chris?
I totally understand that. I feel like, trying to bring back, the classic weapons like the super shotgun, but, the real highlight, of course, with this game that's a bit different is the combat and how it feels, right? It's
Hmm.
chunky, grounded, but relentless. The enemies come at you in massive waves across enormous arenas, and the pacing never really lets up. I feel like, in my opinion, I mean, it was less bullet ballet and more of like a medieval mosh pit. I think that was something kind of different and new. And you got to understand, it's the prequel. It's not what we know as. So I feel like they were trying to, I don't know. I feel like it still feels unmistakably Doom. It's still just as
Yeah.
fast, just as gory, and louder than your neighbor's leaf blower at 7 a.m. I mean,
Oh
it
yeah.
rocks.
Yeah, no, it definitely is still Doom at the end of the day. And don't get me wrong, guys, I do prefer this over a lot of the other things that have been coming out in the last couple of years. There's some stuff that's not that great out there. Won't
Yeah.
name names, but I'm sure you guys can think of some.
Yeah.
But it's just an interesting choice that they decided to go in this direction, especially when it comes to the story, because I don't know if there's really that many people who think of a Doom game as like, yes, I'm going to play this because I care about the story. Like, I want the story to be
Well,
very.
in the modern series too, right? Doom, when they reintroduced it, came out in 2016. Doom Eternal, eventually came out later. Did you feel like that was a little bit of a wrong approach? Is that what you're kind of suggesting? That for the third installment in the modern series to go backwards rather than forward, or do you feel like this was
No, not
Bethesda's
necessarily.
opportunity?
I'm okay with the prequel thing. That's totally fine
Yeah,
by my standards. But I'm just confused why they thought that it was very important to put such more focus on the story, even so to the point where like the beginning of the game, when you press start, you're
yeah,
sitting there watching a cutscene for a couple minutes.
yeah.
Which, yeah,
It's
there's
really
cutscenes at the
badass.
beginning of the first two games, and it's a cool cutscene. Don't get me wrong,
But
but
Henrik, I
it
feel like
feels a
you're
little slower to start. Get you to the action,
well
and
a
that's what
little
I'm
bit in
here
a sense,
for.
but I feel
Here
like
for
we're
the
talking.
action, Chris.
But you're talking about the dark fantasy prophecy, like those archaic realms and that demonic overlord trying to, wipe them off the face of existence. I feel like that's where the cinematic just felt brutal. And for once, it feels like the Doomslayer isn't just ripping and tearing. He's got a purpose. And that's why I really enjoyed the cutscenes more than anything. And, like, I don't want to spoil the end, but it felt so fulfilling.
Hmm.
Felt great. I mean, it's a pretty like you could get this game done within like two, grind out weekends. I would say.
Oh yeah, yeah.
You
It's
know what I
not
mean?
super long.
Not super long. Yeah.
It does have a little bit of replayability if you want to go back and play even some of the levels to find secrets.
But
You're
like
probably not going to find them all in the
that's
first
true
time
because you're
around,
gonna
but
definitely like picture blood-drenched castles, twisted forest, and
yeah.
like those hellish ruins, all dripping with the dread and detail. I mean, every frame looks like an album cover for a metal band that only performs during the eclipse. Okay, and like let's just say it as it is. I mean, the soundtrack doesn't have the iconic Mick Gordon on it, but the new composers definitely understood the assignment. I felt like. I mean, but
Eh,
much like
they're
people
good. They're not Mick
really.
Gordon, but they're good. They're good.
I don't know. I felt like it's a really, really badass, soundtrack. I thought it was really cool.
Hey,
I mean, you could definitely
I
listen
was
to it in
in. I
peace
think
and
it
still
was
get work done in
mission.
your office.
I think I was in mission 4, and the music completely just cut out on me. So I
Oh,
thought I was in silence for like 30 minutes. I was like, "Huh, okay, it's an interesting
but
choice of them to, do this mission in silence.
well,
Typically,
that
there's
sounds like
music
that
for
needs a
these fights."
patch fix that needs to happen, But it didn't take away from the overall experience. I mean,
Yeah, I mean, I
I'm
I
speaking about the
do enjoy the
music to set
music.
the
I am
tone
a
for the
metal
prequel.
fan, just like you, Chris. So
Yes, but I mean,
I
it's
enjoy the music.
But much like when, Ghost frontman fired, the entire band, ditched the whole Papa gear and came back as the Cardinal with the vengeance, the new team still delivers. It's a different vibe, but the spirit's still loud. It's theatrical and unholy in the best way. So I felt like they still kind of captured that magic, but, Doom traded Mars for Medieval Madness and somehow made the franchise even angrier, and the franchise takes a big swing here. And guess what? I feel like it lands, Henrik. This one's a repeat. It's got that very fun arcade kind of style of play. And if you were never a fan of Doom or have no idea or only know it as Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, oh God, please jump on in. You're gonna love Doom: The Dark Ages. What's your verdict, Henrik?
I'm actually gonna go against you on this one. I'm gonna say
Okay.
this is a pause, and the
Okay.
reason why is I like Doom 2016 and Eternal so much more. And when I was seeing this, for reference, I typically buy my games outright. This one, I played it on Game Pass because I didn't want to buy it outright. And that
Yeah.
says something. It's a
Well,
pause.
I mean, I feel like that is where the future of gaming is going, right? I mean, if you have the option to go and get the Xbox Game Pass for $12.99 on the PC or pay $70 out front, what are you going to do? Especially when it drops as a
Yeah.
day one release. I mean, I don't blame you, Henrik. I actually
Yeah.
110% support that route.
Yeah,
Matter
I
of
mean,
fact.
it's still
But
a
then again,
great
Doom: The Dark
game. I'm
Ages
not
sold
saying it's a
3
bad
million
game.
copies, they're claiming. It's crazy. But hey,
Yeah.
we're split on it, but we want to know from you, the gamers. Are you vibing with Doom: The Dark Ages? Are you like Henrik that's like, you know what? I understand what you were trying to do with the game, but let's just go back to what made the Doom franchise so special.